Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in pints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who's at a crossroads. It's Frank. How are you today?
I went down to the crossroads, tried to flag a ride. How you doing?
I'm doing well, especially after you talked to me or sang to me. I'm always good after that. Was that a country song?
Blues.
Was what? Blues. Blues.
An
Excellent.
old blues song. Probably the most famous version is by Cream, Eric Clapton and Cream.
Excellent. Excellent. I know who that is, so I feel justified in asking how you are today.
Good. I'm glad.
Good.
You feel justified. How are you?
I am also good. Thank you for asking. Frank, you and I on Beer with Geeks partake in libations. What libation are you? What libation are you having today?
I am libating. Is that it?
That's terrible.
Sure.
Yeah.
That sounds like it should be illegal.
Which liquid is sluicing down your throat like this?
I'm enjoying one of my favorite beers that I've not had in some time. I'm enjoying a good old Switchback Ale.
Oh, Switchback is so good.
It's so good. They've changed the cans.
I was going to say, looking at a can, what happened to the fun little bottle?
Yeah, it's changed. Yeah, I don't know if the bottles are different too. I don't know, but the cans, they've changed their look. It's sort of a modern, a little more sleek look. I like it, but yeah, it's still the same old good old unfiltered ale from Burlington, Vermont that I love so much and look forward to every spring and summer. And when I saw it, I just had to grab some, and tastes like summer to me.
Well, the taste of summer. What's the taste of? What's that? Not John Mulaney. Oh my gosh, what's happening to me? Stand-up comedian, Tea Cake or Death, Taste of Human, sir.
Eddie Izzard.
Eddie Izzard, thank you. Yeah, when he said Taste of Summer, it just reminded me of Taste of Human, sir. Tea, nice. Cake or death. You must have tea with the vicar or you die of the cake. Then, anyway. I am drinking a Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale from the Lexington Brewing Company.
Love that beer.
It is a very good beer. If you can't decide between bourbon and beer, well, put your hands together, my friend. The Lexington Brewing and Distillation Company is here for you.
Yes,
yes, they are. It is very good. I like it. I'm not always in the mood for it because it's heavy, and as the days are getting warmer, and as Frank's beer tastes are getting heavier and darker. Mine are getting lighter and lighter. And so I'm not it's good right now. Especially since I have two of them left in my fridge. So chances are it's going to be the same beer next week, but that's okay. But it is good though. Yeah.
It's so good. And it really does have the bourbon flavor in it. Like, there's other things that say they use bourbon whiskey barrels or whatever to.
It has the bourbon without the bite of bourbon.
Yes.
And so if you're it's almost like if you're afraid of bourbon, it's a good it's actually a good entry level. Like if you've only done beer, and you need and you want to. I don't want to say grow up a little bit. That's not right. But, you want to try try new things. You want to branch out.
Yeah, branch out. Dip your toe into the hard liquor water. Yeah, I think that's right. It is really good for that because it has a little bit of the flavor of it, but without. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Without the bite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you drink it, it's most definitely beer. It's heavy, like a dark ale. So it's not, you don't feel like you don't think it's not like having like a Mick Ultra where you're like,
sure,
it's a taste of beer, sir.
Yeah.
That's good though. I do like it a lot.
What is the ABV on that? I'm curious.
A great question.
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've had it actually, but it's one of the beers that I remember always being. Ever since I moved to New England, it was like always available in a lot of the like Boston bars and stuff.
Yes,
that's one that I.
It's a 8.2.
8.2. Okay, that's a high one.
It's a high. Well, it is bourbon. I mean, it
is.
But it is bourbon. It's almost double like what some beers are, and so yeah. It's like if you're getting like a flight, if you go out and you're, or if you're like looking to get a few and you see 8.2, and you're like, well, that means I can't have tons because I'm driving.
Right.
So
yes,
you have to.
If you're driving, it's like, all right, I'm gonna have one of those, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to,
and early in the night.
Yes, you have to be cautious.
Yeah,
must be cautious.
Must be cautious. Yeah, Switchback is 5%.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's a
3% doesn't mean a whole lot until it's in your beer or in your paycheck. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, there you go. Wow, that was quick.
Thank you. Well, I'm drinking Kentucky, so I'm
yes,
quick on the draw or something.
Sure,
it just makes no damn sense. Donut hole. Anyway, Frank, I had this idea the other day, and I do know what brought it about, and I'll share that as we get into today's episode topic. But I wonder about things like fandoms, subjects, topics, talents, things that like you want to get into but don't know where to go. I mean, like the cop-out answer is the internet. Like you can always go to the internet to help you out, but sometimes it's a little even that can be a little overwhelming because you're getting mixed opinions about certain things, and I'm going to tell you what brought this on, where I've had this like really tertiary interest in Warhammer 40,000.
Really?
Yeah, I know, right? Right. So But it is an enormously daunting like thing to get into because it's the games, it's the tabletop game, it's also books upon books upon books. Like you're talking mountains of books, scrolls of books.
Yes.
Like one series is like 54 books. That's one series in the thing, and so and like so on and so on and so on from there. And so like, and I don't really know. I tried to get into it when I was in high school. I had a friend that was interested in it, and so like I went to the tabletop store and like I got a couple of minis and like everything, but like I didn't really know where to go from there apart from like having the minis. And I have learned myself over time, and you know, and even then that like the tabletop mini part of it is not my field of interest. That's like too many rules, too many like the minutia of things is just too much. Like I tried Magic the Gathering when I was younger too, and it's like I just can't keep a track of the cards of this and what. It's not in me. It's just like an overwhelming board game, and I phase out for, you know, when someone tries to explain Rummy to me. So it just wasn't for me. But I do like reading, and I do like science fiction. And it's like this science fiction magic blend, and but it's like I felt like you feel like when someone like wants to get into comics and they're like, okay, now what?
Yeah,
because there's just so much, and if you're not pointed in any particular direction, you have no idea where to start. And this is with Warhammer 40,000. Where do I start? So I actually asked a student of mine who I knew was reading some of the books. It's kind of like where part of it was in it. And I asked him, I said, like, I told you him the same thing. And I just don't know where to go. or what to do in terms of reading these books. And so he pinpointed me towards a couple. He's like, I've read these. These are good. You don't need to know anything else, which is what no one on the internet will tell you, which I say the internet is daunting. That like no one will say like, you can just start anywhere. It doesn't actually matter. Like comics, basically.
Yes.
You could pick up basically anything. And as long as it doesn't say like, most of the time, as long as it doesn't say like volume 7 or whatever, then like you kind of know, just you start by volume 1. But even then, you don't really have to.
Right. Like you can I mean, like, look, if you're willing to do some thinking, like
kinda, yeah,
you can sort of figure out. I mean, it's sort of like, you know, a couple weeks ago we were talking about movies that you can flip on while it's in mid progress and keep up with, right?
Yeah.
You can do that with a movie you haven't seen before, right?
Absolutely.
You can sort of be like, oh, okay, it seems like context clues. It seems like this is happening.
Yeah.
Right? You can do that. It won't be as easy or maybe as good an experience, but like you could just do that to get started, and then you know you'd be good from there.
That's how I watched most of this. That's how I've watched This Is Us. Like my wife would watch it. You walk in your room and like, who dat? Who's that? Who's that?
Yes.
What's he about? What's he doing? Okay, I'm caught up. Like, yeah, that's it.
Yep.
It's really not that complicated. But what I didn't realize about Warhammer is that it's not that it's an unconnected world, but I was thinking of it as like this like logical starting place, you know, and like you got to start here, number 1, and just work your way up. And I was like, no, you don't have to do that. It is an entire universe, and you can just pick a story that interests you or a character that like so I just went to the store and I picked up the Eisenhorn Omnibus because it sounded interesting. It was like, this guy's an Inquisitor, and I was like, that sounds fun. I like that. It was written by Dan Abnett, and I'm like, I know him from comics. I like him. I will read that. And it's like, this guy's an Inquisitor. He works for the Emperor, and he's really like puritanical in his beliefs, and it's slowly about his descent into like moving away from that. I'm like, that sounds interesting. I will read that. And it's been good so far. Like, and I've really enjoyed it. And it turns out I don't need to know anything. Like, I truly need to know nothing. It is all given to me. And it was just so refreshing. So anyway, so it got me thinking about what are some other things that like, what are things that you've always wanted to get into, but you just like don't know where to go or what to do?
I have a couple of these.
Mm-hmm.
I have one in particular that has recently come to mind, and you need to promise not to get too excited.
Oh, is it
The
Lord of the Rings? No,
maybe, maybe.
Is it actually? Is it actually Lord of the Rings?
Actually,
oh, that's awesome. I actually knew that. Yeah, our friend Andrew texted me.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair. He would have told you, yeah.
I didn't think he. I thought it was Andrew. No, Andrew, if you're listening to this, I love you dearly. I thought it was Andrew being Andrew, and he's like, I think I got Frank. I think he's going to watch it.
No, we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, you know, it is kind of what you were saying about Warhammer. Like, it is intimidating, and you're talking about too many cards, too many rules, like, you know, with that and with Magic. And that's a bit how I feel about Lord of the Rings, that there are a lot of people, places, and things to keep track of. And like,
sure.
When I read The Hobbit, I felt a little bit disoriented with some of the some of that.
When did you read The Hobbit? I didn't even know that you read The Hobbit.
I had to read it in high school.
Yeah, sure. But that's like brand new information to me.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, here's the thing. I read The Hobbit more than 20 years ago.
Sure.
So
me too.
So like,
yeah.
Okay, are we bragging now?
No. I mean, I also had to read it in high school. That's all I mean.
No,
yeah.
But I say that to say I was a very different person when I read it. Right?
Sure.
And so, approaching that again now in my mid 30s would be a very different thing than it was in my early teens.
Mm-hmm. You had time in your early teens.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I was closer to my daughter's age than I was to my own age right now.
Don't say that like that. Oh,
anyway.
Oh, that hurts inside. Oh, My bones are aching. You better get home quick.
Yeah, there's Tom's Brewing, Annie.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so that's the most. That's the deepest Phantom Menace cut you could ever hope for.
Yeah.
Random elderly lady. You better get home quick.
I don't think she even has a name, right? Like that's.
I have no idea.
So yeah, I have been mulling that over, and that I would because I like Tolkien's writing on other subjects. Like he's done some really well-known, beautiful writing outside of Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Some of which I've read and really, really enjoyed. And knowing, I'm really interested in a lot of the allegory and symbolism that I know is contained within Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm. He would chuck a log at you if he knew you said it was allegory. But besides that, you're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. But say symbolism then.
Yeah.
I am very interested in getting to experience that and do the analysis and see the connections and the symbolism that he's trying to convey. But it is just a very intimidating task. And and there's the inevitable thing of like, this is a funny thing, but like expectations, like when you've been the guy who like doesn't like, quote unquote, doesn't like Lord of the Rings for such a long time, and then suddenly you start showing any interest, people are like, oh my God, you're gonna love it. And it's like, okay, don't put I might not love it.
Yeah,
don't put pressure on me.
And I'll be the first one to tell you, like, I don't really know if you will. Like, I know you well enough to say, like, it might not be for you. There might be parts of it that are for you. There you go. Oh, I really liked this, then how it connected to this other thing that I like or whatever. But the rest of it might not be for you, and that's okay.
I suspect it's going to be something like that, because that's how I feel about like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's how I feel about Harry Potter. Like, there are things about it that I like, but still, at the end of the day, like, I'm still not really big on high fantasy.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I really wouldn't even. Well, I guess those would be high fantasy. I guess they are kind of high fantasy. Lord of the Rings definitely is, but
Harry Potter may not be high fantasy, but I mean Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one pro I might say in Lord of the Rings' favor is in terms of something that you might connect to more than Narnia or Harry Potter, is that those two properties are in fact meant for kids, right?
Yes.
Where Lord of the Rings is actually not. So there is, like, you might enjoy it because there's more meat on the bone.
Yeah,
I guess in that way, where like Narnia is what what you see is what you get, and Lewis and then the filmmakers, whatever, they're not hiding anything, right?
Yeah.
It is like explicitly allegorical, like, like this is the one-to-one comparison here, whereas Tolkien was like, no, it's what you make of it. These are the things that influence me because of the person that I am, but that doesn't mean I was thinking about them like and wanted them to be there to make this connection. That's for you, the reader, to decide, which is at the time extraordinarily advanced literary theory. Nobody was really thinking that way. But yeah, so when you say like, I might be interested in Lord of the Rings, are you thinking that you'll like watch Fellowship of the Ring, or would you try diving into the book?
I think I'm more likely to start with the films.
I would agree with that based on a lot of things, but I think that's a good primer.
I think attention span alone, and just the amount of time that I have to dedicate to this, like, I don't know that I don't even know how many hours each book would be. I'm guessing it's like 12 to 14 hours per book or something, probably. Right? Like, I don't think I have 36 hours to devote to this, but I could probably carve out 10 hours over the course of a few days or weeks, realistically, to watch the movies. Right, 12 hours, whatever it is. Like, I could basically to watch the films, even the extended cuts, which is probably what I would do just to get the full experience.
Truthfully, I wouldn't. And I'm
Really?
going to have Tolkien people throw stuff at me.
Okay, wait. Let's put a pin in that for a second.
Okay.
Let's put a pin in that for just 1 second.
okay.
I do want to come back to that.
All right.
But the point I wanted to make was just for the time it would take me to read or listen to one audiobook, I could watch all the films. And with an almost 2-year-old, time is a premium, and like I don't know that I could sacrifice that much time for something that I don't know how much I'm going to enjoy it. Anyway, let's come back to so you think not extended editions for me.
Yep. I think for most people, not extended editions.
For most first timers, you mean?
Yeah, I'd say for most. Yeah, for any first timer, actually.
Okay.
The regular cut, the theatrical cuts of the film are the more tightly woven story. They are it is a A to B. There's no fat. Despite the length of the films, there's no fat. Like there's not really a wasted second. Like everything is there on purpose. All the extended cuts are for the Tolkien fans. That includes a bunch of stuff that doesn't necessarily have an overall impact on the main crux of the story. So you might get little bits, like you get like in Fellowship of the Ring is a good example. So there's a character that's like singing a little song to himself at a campfire. Okay. And then like another character wakes up and he's like, "What are you singing?" And he like tells him what he's singing about and whatever. And that's it. That's the whole scene. Like, and so like that scene for a fan is like, oh, he was singing this famous song that relates back to something that happened thousands of years ago in Middle Earth and blah, 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 blah. Like it's just a giant Easter egg. Like, but it doesn't have any purpose over the overarching point of the story. And that's where you're going to get like, if you're trying to like watch all the things and like put it all the pieces together, that's not the viewing experience for you.
I see.
Okay,
that makes sense.
Yeah. If you want to dive into the symbolism, you can put your thinking cap on and watch it, right, for particular things. Or you can just watch it. Like that's what's so good about them. It tells you everything, tells you who everybody is and what their connection is, and the movie's long enough that like you're not overwhelmed by characters early on. You may be thinking about it because you don't know them and you're like, oh, when did they show up? Whatever, but like you know who Bilbo is. You read The Hobbit. You know who Gandalf is. That's it. You're fine. Those are the characters you meet at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
You know them.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's an easy entry point for many.
Do you think that the films are so I have heard the sentiment that like, I mean, this is with any book adaptation, right? That the films leave out a lot of the important symbolism that a lot of people really enjoy a lot about it. That it's been sort of, I don't want to say sanitized, feels like too strong a word, but that it's been sort of stripped of some of the deeper meaning or whatever to make it more accessible to a mass market film audience. Do you agree with that, or does it not matter so much for a sort of I'm looking for a minimum viable product, right? Like what's sort of the least investment I need to get a reasonably full Lord of the Rings experience?
It's a good question. All right. I will come at this in two ways. It does obviously not give you everything because it is a film and not a book, right?
Yes.
And a lot of like what you're talking about, the symbolism of the story comes from a lot of the narration, right? That it would actually be quite hard to translate into a film because there's no one there to kind of talk about things. So like there's a scene in Return of the King, the third book, where like, Sam and Frodo are in Mordor, which is like the last place they have to go, and it's like the land of death and decay and blah blah blah, and there's like smog everywhere. There's no and there's like this little moment where Sam can see the stars through the smog and the clouds and everything, and in that he talks about like the hope and the eternal that can keep going even in its darkest moment and like all that stuff, and it's really quite beautiful in the text. You would never be able to really get that in the amount of time that is given to you in a movie to like fully comprehend how all these things are working together, unless somebody turned to the camera and was like, well, glad that's there for me,
Truly he was. the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, basically, that's actually it is. It would be almost tantamount to like one of the Pevensey kids in Narnia being like, "Wow, he's just like Jesus," you know, like, like that's kind of what it is. And so, but the movies, because the intention of Lord of the Rings is first and foremost to just be a story. That's what the movie also is. It's just like Lord of the Rings is influenced by the very person that Tolkien is, you know, and all that he read and all that he worked and all that he believed and worshipped and all these different things. And so in the movies, because they are actually faithful adaptations of his work, are that in essence. And so a lot of the bigger symbols and themes and all that stuff are still there. Mm-hmm. Like, you might miss out on some stuff, like if you're looking at Tolkien as a Catholic, the Fellowship of the Ring sets out for their adventure on December 25th, right? Mm-hmm. And that's like, you know, significant for Tolkien the Catholic, but like no one's turning to each other and being like, wow, crazy that it's December 25th, am I right? And someone's like, what are you talking about, Gandalf? You know? So that kind of stuff is lost. But it doesn't detract from when I first saw it, I didn't know any of those things and I loved it.
Okay.
You know? Yeah. Like, I think, you know, like when you watch a superhero movie, like we're going to go see Superman in 2025, right? And so, and your eye is going to be darting everywhere to look for all the things. Or like when you go see a Marvel movie and you're like looking for all the things, right? You see Iron Man 2 and you know there's going to be stuff and you're like, is that Cap shield back there? Is that like right there? Whatever. Is that like that kind of thing? And so you don't have to worry about doing any of that because you don't know any of it. So you can just you can just watch it and you can connect pieces yourself. But it's all this. So I think Tolkien fans are like the worst people to sell you on things.
I mean, with anything that has an intense fandom, the most intense fans are the worst people to ask in a certain sense, because what they will enjoy is different than what a beginner will enjoy.
Correct.
That's just the nature of it. I'm a bad person to ask, like, where should I start with Superman? I actually have been thinking about this with my daughter. Where
it's tough.
Introduce her to some Superman stuff, right? And like, I have like a book that you recommend, a comic that you recommended, but like when it comes to like, oh, what should I like show her on TV? I'm like, I'm a bad person to ask. Yeah. Because like what I'd be looking for is not what a 2-year-old is looking for.
Correct.
So it's a funny situation where you think they're the best people to ask, but they're actually in some ways maybe the worst people to ask, unless they're very, very good at like, I don't know, empathy for a beginner's point of view and can sort of shape it for you.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think the best thing for me to do would be to start with just the films, just the theatrical cuts, like minimum, and watch them. And if I enjoy that, you know, talk to you, talk to Andrew, talk to other fans. You know, we'll have if I do actually do this, like we'll have a conversation about it here on the show, and some of the stuff that maybe I didn't experience because it was cut from the movie or is only in the extended cut or whatever, you know, you can fill me in on like, oh, and there's this, if you like that, there's this even better thing where in the book XYZ happens, and then I'll be like, oh wow, that's cool. And if there's enough of that, maybe I'll want to read the book.
Right.
But you're probably right. Start small. Don't get too ambitious. Start with something small, and sort of if you like that, go from there.
Right. If this was somebody like you said, Superman, getting into Superman or getting into like Marvel or anything like that, like someone's like, oh, the MCU, there's so many movies, like what do I do? You watch Iron Man.
Right.
If you don't like it, you're probably not going to like the rest of them because they're all built on that model. So you just start there. Don't worry about the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that.
Yep.
I was going to say, in terms of time, you know, watching Lord of the Rings or whatever, I'm sure somebody out there has done time edits.
Sure.
You know, to be like, oh, if you wanted to watch this as a mini series, watch from here to here, and watch from here to here.
Oh, like time codes.
Time codes. That's what I want. That's
Okay.
So then,
okay.
so that way,
that's
like, I mean, I could probably do it myself. Like, I could think about it and like do that for you. I've seen it so many times.
Here's an episode. Yeah. That's interesting.
It's a 3-hour movie, so here's 3 episodes. Yeah.
That's a very interesting idea. Actually, I'm going to look that up and see if that exists. I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like a fan edit. And I was like, well, I don't want to watch.
No. Watch. Yeah. Peter Jackson has also gone on record saying that he prefers the theatrical cuts to the extended cut. So even though he makes these extended cuts and whatever else, I do that because I know people want to see more. But my preferred version is the one that we put out.
He is bad at. He is bad at leaving things out. I feel like he tends to make.
Are you talking about the 6-hour Beatle documentary? Where he
the 9-hour one.
Is it 9? Okay, yeah,
it's 9.
Yeah,
almost 9. And he has like a 14-hour version of it that they wouldn't let him release.
Right.
That of course all the fans knowing that now are like, put it out on Blu-ray.
Right.
But yeah, like he's not good at. Have you heard the phrase "killing your darlings"?
Yes, I understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's not good at that, which is great if you're a fan of the things that he is making films about.
Correct.
It's like, great, we get so much material. But I think is like, it's kind of funny that like he's good at so many things. The one thing he's not good at is like knowing what to cut all the time.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to keep it moving along.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen.
I think for the Beatles thing that was good. That he was
right. That's in a lot of ways historical footage that you are giving people. That's fine. People want to watch it. You're going to watch the whole thing. And I feel that sometimes that's how he feels. I think all the time. You want to watch it. You want to watch the whole thing. And for Rings, especially Fellowship, maybe not Towers or Return of the King in the same way, but Fellowship especially for being a 3-hour movie is pretty economical. It's it gives you enough time in each place with each set of characters as it builds that like you have a fully rounded relationship with everybody and you don't really feel that like, well, that could have been 20 minutes shorter because you wouldn't, thinking back, you go, well, what out of this in the story that it's telling would you cut? It would be hard to figure that out. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but anyway, so we only got through two fandoms, but it was okay. That's okay. What are we gonna do? Frank, where can the people find us?
Head on over to beerwithgeeks.com. That's where you can find all of our episodes, going all the way back to episode 1. Almost 500 episodes to go. You can find the links to subscribe to us in any podcast player that you like. You can rate and review us in many of those podcast apps, so please do that because that really does help us. And another way you can help us is by going over to patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio and throwing us $1 or $2 here and there to help us maintain the show and pay for the costs of making it.
Excellent. 2 things before we go that I just thought of. Lord of the Rings is coming back to theaters in June. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know
but
that.
Coming back in June, so it'd be interesting for you to do this before June, because if it turns out that you actually really do like it, you do have a chance to actually see it on the big screen.
Are those the extended ones they're showing on the big
screen? They
are
the extended ones, which I'm kind of bummed about because I also prefer the theatrical cut.
Like
there are parts of each extended one that I wish they included. There are like some character moments or deaths or this or that I just kind of wish were there, but overall I think the theatrical cuts are better movies. But that's that. The second thing is I think locations were something that you were like, oh, there's so many locations or whatever else.
Yeah.
They tell you what it is when it happens and it's important. The rest of the time it don't really matter. That's
Sweet.
Most they could say, oh, we're in this forest. Okay, good for you. Don't, you know what I mean? It's kind of like Star Wars when they go to a planet. You're like, okay, good for you. You're on Hoth. What's the significance of Hoth? Nothing. Literally nothing. It's just cold there. There is no significance.
Okay.
So
right.
just know that. That's okay. Yeah.
Cool.
So, all right, very good.
I'm just waiting for him to take the hobbits to Isengard. That's really all I know.
To Isengard. Anyway, Frank, it was a pleasure as always. Until next time, cheers.
Cheers. Boil them, mash them, put them in a stew. Boil them, mash them, put them in a stew.
Oh, boil them, mash them, nice and sweet.